Hello, and thank you for joining me today on Geese of Gear, episode number 234. Today's podcast is brought to you by Elation. Elation's industry standard 6-par series has received a cutting-edge upgrade. The 6 Plus Par offers more output, a wider color spectrum, and overall superior quality of light. Available with either 7 times or 14 times 20 watt LEDs, the 6 Plus Par integrates seamlessly with original 6 Par fixtures. And available soon is the 6 Plus Bar, an upgrade of Elation's mainstay 6 bar LED batten. Available with either 6 times or 12 times 20 watt LEDs, the 6 Plus Bar features more output and an overall improved quality of light, and houses the same LED engine as the 6 Plus Par for a perfect color match. All fixtures in Elation's 6 Plus series are IP65 protected to handle any environment. Please check out the 6 Plus Par and the 6 Plus Bar today at elationlighting.com. And today's podcast is also brought to you by Mainlight. Mainlight is a national dry hire rental provider specializing in supplying the latest lighting and stage equipment technology. Their extensive rental inventory includes moving light, truss solutions, control consoles, LEDs, and an array of weather-resistant IP65 rated fixtures, perfect for outdoor venues. Whether for theater productions, outdoor stadium events, or TV film broadcasts, Mainlight is the partner you trust with the gear you want. Discover how Mainlight can equip your next event by visiting mainlight.com today and get a direct quote through their comprehensive online ordering platform. I'm back. And so again, episode number 234 today. So yeah, yesterday was really good. 233, episode 233 was Josh Allen, a guy who remarkably, I guess I didn't know as much about as I thought, because I didn't even know that he lived in Scotland. And so he was talking to us from Scotland yesterday. I hope you saw that podcast. It's very good. Josh is an interesting guy. He's involved in a lot of different stuff. I had no idea he was a rep for ETC and for other companies. He had his own rep firm at one point. The Josh that I know is the 3LR Josh, who I guess that's been around since, God, I already forget. It was just yesterday, but I think 2017. I hope I'm right. Or maybe 2016. Anyways, good guy. Check it out if you haven't heard 223. Great guy. I think you'll enjoy it. And so today it's actually Good Friday, and hopefully, everyone's with their families and they're not working and recording podcasts like I am. Actually, Gear Source has been really busy today. It's the end of the month, so we're also doing a lot of that stuff. But so recording on Good Friday. By the time you hear this, it will be at least April. I think launch for this one is April 4th, which is next Thursday, I believe. So hopefully you'll hear that on that day, and maybe within a few days of that. But anyways, today's guest, Richard Cadena, who's one of my favorite people. I like Richard a lot. Very smart guy, way smarter than me. This is going to be tough. I'll have to really reach for brain cells on this one. Richard is an ETCP Recognized Trainer, an ETCP Certified Entertainment Electrician with over 36 years of experience in live event production. And if you didn't know, he worked at High-End Systems for a long time. That's where I got to know Richard. Richard is the author of Electricity for Entertainment Electricians and Technicians, 3rd edition, Automated Lighting, The Art and Science of Moving and Color Changing Light, 3rd edition, Lighting Design for Modern Houses of Worship, Focus on Lighting Technology. He's written a bunch of books, basically, and they're all really smart books. As a freelance lighting designer and lighting consultant, Richard has worked on concert tours, television, theater, motion picture productions, sporting events, and more. His latest projects include supplying battery and solar power for festival stages, lighting the basketball courts for the NBA playoffs, and lighting comedy clubs in Austin, Texas. He's the technical editor for lighting and sound, I believe, because the symbols all got messed up on my screen here, so I can't even read it. I think it's for Plaza, or lighting and sound. I'm sorry, I got that one wrong. Media, and a columnist for the same, Lighting and Sound America, Lighting and Sound International, and Protocol magazines. He is a member of IATSE Local 205 in good standing, and Richard is also in demand as a speaker and trainer. So if you are on live, peace. I'll see you later. If you're listening to this or watching this on April 4th or after that time, then stick around, because here comes Richard. Richard?
Hey, Marcel.
What's happening?
You are, man. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks. You're happening. I read your bio and stuff. Like, Jesus, I had to take sips of water during your bio. It was so, and something funny happened, and I'm really embarrassed because I couldn't remember the actual name of Lighting and Sound America. And like the characters got all jumbled up on the thing that I'm reading from. And I'm like, it says L and AMP semicolon SA media. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what am I supposed to say? So
how do you read that?
Yeah, I fumbled through that a little bit, but who the heck is calling Richard Cadena? It's probably your publisher with another check.
No, my stockbroker.
Oh, there you go.
Wanting to,
yeah. Buy more something. AI stock, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Exactly.
I definitely want to actually spend some time talking with you about AI, because if anybody had an opinion, I thought it'd be you. So it's one of my sort of highlighted topics that you didn't mention, but I'm absolutely gonna.
I've been having a good time with it. I probably use it differently than most people, but it's a lot of
Same with me.
It's really interesting.
Yeah,
a lot going on there.
Oh, I mean, yeah. So we'll get into that. I want to talk about a lot of stuff with you today. We haven't caught up probably since COVID. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, no, we did one a year ago or so.
No.
But yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Really? That recent?
I think so.
Jesus.
Maybe not. Something. We talked about doing one.
I think that's what happened.
More,
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I think we talked about doing one, and then you got busy. It's hard to sort of poke a hole in your schedule. Like you're a very busy guy.
Man, it's you know how it is. It's either drought or flood.
Yeah. Feast or famine. Yeah. So starting from the top here. So I mean. Here's a funny story, by the way. So was it last week? No, it was the week before. I had a Austrian front of house engineer for a death metal band on. Thomas. What the heck is Thomas's last name? I forget. But anyways, somehow Sarah got the notes mixed up, and so I'm reading from his notes, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I put together the sort of talking points that I wanted to go through. And one of them was, so you just got off a Willie Nelson show, huh? And this guy's a death metal front of house guy. And I'm like, this is weird, but hey, he said he did it.
Yeah, let's go with it.
He went to Austin and he did a Willie Nelson gig. And I'm like, that is bizarre. But that was obviously Richard Cadena.
That was me and some guys from Everlast. Sorry, not Everlast. Overdrive Energy Solutions.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was the second year we did that festival, and what we've been doing is we have been going in, setting up solar farms, and charging up big giant banks of batteries with inverters and powering the stages with them. And these guys have been doing it for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And last year was my first show with them. The Willie Nelson's Luck Reunion Festival in Austin. It's actually on his ranch.
Yeah.
Outside of Austin.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's very cool. Yeah.
And he's still performing.
He's still performing. Yeah. I mean, he's lost a step in his voice, but it's somebody was saying that he's turned into a rapper because he kind of talks his lyrics now, you know.
Ah, that's funny. How old is he now?
Yeah. Oh God, what is he? I forget. He just had a big birthday, so I guess he was
Did he?
90. I guess he's 91.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. How old is
Yeah.
Willie Nelson? Come on, talk
She
to me.
didn't want to
Oh,
tell
it
you.
just said it on the screen. It
Oh,
says he's 90. Must
90.
must have just
Okay.
turned
Well,
90. Yeah.
his birthday is coming up in April, and he'll be
Ah,
91. Yeah,
wow.
because they had a big birthday celebration last year at Hollywood Bowl with
Okay.
Snoop Dogg and everybody, you know.
Because
But
that's what
yeah,
a
it was
90-year-old guy wants at your birthday party, right? Snoop Dogg. I
exactly.
mean, I guess
Yeah.
that's the whole weed culture thing or whatever, right?
Yeah, except he
Yeah.
quit weed, and it was a big story in the news. He quit smoking weed. He's 90
Who
years
did?
old, you know.
Oh, Willie
Willie
did.
Nelson.
Well,
Yeah,
because
Willie did.
because what's his name? Snoop did that like sort of spoof Super Bowl ad, right? I'm
I
off
missed
smoke
that.
or something. I forget
Oh,
how he
that's right.
worded it, and it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with smoking weed.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
"What are you kidding? I ain't stopping that." So yeah, that was kind of
Yeah,
funny.
right.
Anyways, go on.
Yeah.
So it was on his ranch, and it's a festival, and it's
Yeah.
called Willie
It's called
Nelson's
Luck
Luck Reunion.
Reunion.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's there's the main stage, which is a stage line. I think it's a 360. It's the big stage,
yeah.
and we powered the lighting and audio on that stage, plus two other smaller stages, plus a lot of vendors and the food court with batteries and inverters.
So
And
where did all that
last
stuff
year,
come from? Who owns all that? The batteries and inverters and
well, we rent some of it, and Overdrive owns a lot of it, so they build this stuff. I
huh?
mean, some of it you'd be surprised how small a battery bank you need to power a small to medium sized stage. We literally can put them in Pelican cases, and
Interesting.
yeah. So if you look at one of the stages, and the stage is maybe 25 by 20, something like that. It's not huge,
Yeah,
but it's got LEDs, moving lights, and it's got a fog machine. It's got a speakers on a stick.
yeah.
And if you look off stage left, there's a Pelican case that is powering the whole thing.
Get out
And
of here.
we charge that up, and it'll run. The stage runs from doors are at 11, and they start playing about 2, and they run till 11 at night. And at the end of the night, we
Jesus,
take that Pelican, put it on a golf cart, run it over to the solar farm, charge it back up, or we swap it out if we have a spare, and go the next night.
that is
And
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
how
and
much power's in that Pelican case?
that's a 5 kW. So
Okay.
and that's the output. The storage is a different story. But what you can do is you can add another Pelican case that's just batteries to add the runtime,
Uh huh.
but you're limited by how much current you can output by the inverters in it. So there's an
Okay.
inverter, there's a battery bank, and then you can series the batteries, you can parallel the batteries. So if you needed more output, you parallel them. If you want more runtime, you series them. And as one battery drains down, then the other charges it back up. And you have an app so you can watch it the whole time, and you make sure that
Oh,
you're not going to run short.
yeah.
If you're running short, you just go over there, and between sets, because there's constant, a band will play for 1 hour, then they'll bring another band on. They don't have like a 5 minute turnaround,
Yeah.
but you have time to swap out or to add another battery if you need to. And the first year we had no idea how it's going to work out because we didn't know what they were going to plug in or how long they were going to go. Nobody gave
Right.
us, equipment lists or run times or anything. So it was a complete dart throw, Marcel. And, so we got through it very well. Um, but this year we had all of the data from last year because we data log, we record everything. So we know now exactly what to expect and
Yeah.
how much to bring. And it was just so much more relaxed this year. And get this, on the main stage last year, we had two big battery units. These are huge. They're the ones we used last year. I think they're about 8 feet long. They're about 6 feet tall, and about 5 feet wide, and they weigh 6,000 pounds. So picture a tow package generator, like 150
Yeah.
kVA generator.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't have wheels because we we fork it around on a lull, big giant forklift, right?
Yeah.
But last year we had two of those, and what we would do is we put them in series so that they would drain, and we used a lot of the energy from the batteries. Most of it is idle time, because they do a line check at 10 in the morning, and then they have the show at 9 o'clock at night from 11. But during the day, it's draining down. And
Yeah.
then at the end of the night, then we'd fork it over the solar farm, charge it up in the day, and we'd swap them out. We would alternate them, leapfrog them. Well, this year we got a different type of battery inverter that was actually a smaller package,
Yeah.
but it had 4.5 times as much energy in it, more storage.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So so we ran the entire festival. It's a 2 day event. So
Yeah.
2 nights, Willie comes out and plays, and the bands are running all day long. But for 2 days, we ran that one battery bank. We had a whole backup right next to it, so
Wow.
that if it gets down to about 20-25%, we then recharge it from the other one. We never had to touch the spare. Never
That is
touched it.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So
So
you don't have generators as backups, do you?
well, you know what we did last year,
Yeah.
because again we were
You had no idea
kind of
what
in
to
an unknown
expect. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Last year we had triple redundancy. So we had the
Yeah.
main battery inverter, then we had a diesel generator that was already tied into it, and it was programmed so that if the charge got to 25%, it would automatically kick on the
A
generator
transfer switch
and
or something.
recharge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah, an
Yeah.
automatic transfer switch,
Yeah.
exactly. It's built into the
Did
battery
I
inverter.
surprise you with that one, Rich Cad?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's great.
I got you with that one, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But and so but and people say, well, then what's the point of having batteries if you're going to have a generator? Well, the point is that first of all, the battery bank you can charge when nobody's playing, so you don't have the noise, you don't have the diesel smell. And second of all, the way diesel generators work, is the more heavily they're loaded, the more fuel efficient they are. So
Hmm.
when you charge the battery, you load the diesel generator full. So you
Yeah.
get maximum fuel efficiency out of it. And it really minimizes the carbon footprint of the diesel generator.
Interesting.
And in addition to the generator, we also had tied into grid. So we had two backups in case
Yeah.
anything failed. Nothing, the show would go on.
Yeah.
Well, this year we had zero generators in the entire festival. We completely displaced all of the diesel in the entire festival.
With batteries and a solar farm. How big
Right.
was your solar footprint or whatever you call
Not
it?
not far, not big. I think, let's see. I didn't set it up this year. We had help, so I didn't get the exact count. But at Lollapalooza, for example, we had 138 240-watt solar panels, which, so it was about a 60 kilowatt solar farm.
Okay.
I think at Willie's festival this year is probably a little bit less. I'd say probably 40 kilowatts of
Yeah.
solar,
Okay.
something like that.
Interesting.
So and while we were doing Luck Reunion, we were also doing the one of the stages at South by Southwest on Auditorium Shore. So we had another solar, and that's why we had smaller solar farms this year, because we split it between South by and Willie's Luck Reunion.
So let me ask you something. Like, is this is this an actual business? Like, is this someone making money competing with generator companies?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
And is it viable yet? Like, does it
Hmm.
make financial sense to
Yeah.
the
So
customer and
it,
to the
it
company?
yeah, it's very similar in cost. Now, sometimes there's more upfront cost, but you save on other. There's other synergies you get. So, for example, because you can put the battery right next to the stage, you don't have as much feeder cable to run. So you
Okay.
can save on cable rental, on cable ramp rental. You save on labor, um, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's more than just that, but that's just an example.
Are there
So
any are there any
go ahead.
incentives yet, like for somebody to run a show like that? Are they able to? Does the state give them
Not
money or something for being green?
not that I know of. However, we have worked with Reverb.org, which is an organization started by Adam. And I always forget Adam's last name, but he's the lead singer for the band Guster. if you're
Okay.
familiar with Guster.
I'm not.
And okay, well, they were. If you went to college in the '90s, they were big,
Ah.
and so you probably know Guster, and super nice guys. And they started Reverb.org to decarbonize stages. So what they do is they raise money for this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So they organized the original Luck reunion. I think they were. I'm not sure if they were involved in this one or not because I didn't see the signs everywhere like I usually do.
Yeah.
But they also got us involved in Lollapalooza, and that was basically Billie Eilish picking up the tab, and working through Reverb.org, and they said, she said we want to do this thing. So what we did is we provided power for all the floor for all of the guest services on the stage, and this was an enormous stage. So there was a floor package that was a 400 amp three phase service, and then there was audio world and video world, which were 200 amps. There was special effects, which is also 200 amps three phase, and then there was one other service that was just for the toaster. If you saw the Lollapalooza, her performance at Lolla, then you saw her stage entrance is from beneath the stage, and she pops up on the stage, and so that was one service for that. you know
Interesting.
yeah, so I don't know of any grants or anything like that, but just there are organizations who work on helping to put these things together, and Reverb.org is one of them.
Well, and there's a lot of obviously noise about it, like about becoming more sustainable as an industry and things like that. Like I actually, Mickey Kerbishley, I'm sure.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I was just listening to your podcast last week with
Yeah,
him.
so he talked a lot about sustainability, and you should probably connect with him because they've got all kinds of ideas and thoughts about making shows more sustainable and more.
It's a great
Uh,
idea. Yeah.
and Solotech obviously has the money to put behind that as well. So that might be an interesting conversation for you to get into, and specifically with Mickey. Like I think he's the guy kind of driving it at Solotech.
I'll tell
So
him you sent me.
absolutely. I could connect you two through an email if you'd like,
That'd
and
be that'd be great.
just
Yeah.
say, hey, I was talking to Richard, and yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
that after the podcast. So yeah, that's really interesting. So what are some of the things you learned this year that will help you towards next year, or that make it more
Well,
doable or whatever?
the big learning curve is how our loads behave, because typically when you're doing a show, the master electrician puts together an equipment list, and then you go to the specs and you put together all the wattages, and then you divide by the voltage to figure out how much power you need, that's legit. Although what you find out by logging the data and studying it is that nobody turns everything on at one time.
Yeah.
Nobody puts all their lights in full and in full white.
Well,
And
and LEDs have changed that. LEDs have changed
right.
that too because they're not on all the
Exactly.
time, like discharge
Exactly.
lamps, of course, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so LEDs, like
Exactly.
they go on, they go off, they go on, they go off.
Right.
It's not a shutter
That's
dim or
right.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's why we convinced Bud Rock, Willie's lighting designer, to go all LED. And
yeah,
he's old school, man. He's been using Parcants,
yeah,
so that was a
yeah,
big step for him.
yeah,
But yeah, so what we're trying to learn more about is the nature of the beast when it comes to how does this stuff behave during a show. And what we're finding out is that it's a small amount of power compared to, if you just add up all of the loads that you're
yeah,
connecting. And that goes for lighting, it goes for audio, even goes for video, although video is a bit more tricky because when you put content on the screen that's all white, it really sucks the power.
yeah, yeah,
So you do need you need more overhead for video than you need for audio. The audio peaks are very, very fast transients. I have been metering audio rigs lately, and what you find is if you meter them, a big line array in an arena will draw somewhere between 35 and 50 amps per leg, and they'll hit peaks of about 100 amps or 150, 175 amps if you have a normal meter. But if you have a really, really good fast meter that catches really fast transients, you'll get peaks up to 225.
ooh,
yeah, but it's just for a fraction of a second,
But is that enough to like
So
trip things and cause problems
no,
or no?
no, because the way circuit breakers work is they take time to heat up. So
Ah,
it would have to be peaking for 5 or 10, 15 minutes before it would trip it.
oh, I see.
So no, that's why we can get away with 200 amp services for audio. That's
Right.
usually what, you're going to use for an arena show,
Yeah.
you know.
So
So that's,
what's using the most energy then? Is it the audio or typically on a show?
no, no, it's definitely lighting.
Is it
It's definitely
still
lighting.
even
Yeah.
with LED?
Yeah. Oh, even with LED. Well, because of the numbers,
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah,
shows ain't getting smaller.
LEDs. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the lights are getting more power. Even the LEDs are getting more power hungry.
Yeah, it's true.
I just at USITT they who was it? I think it's Lyceum now that has a 1500-watt LED follow spot.
Yeah, that's got to be bright.
So yeah, oh, it's bright. It's
Yeah.
definitely bright.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, the fixtures just keep getting brighter and brighter too. The LED fixtures,
right.
it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's I was talking, this had to be a couple of years ago. I was talking to Robert Roth and
Mhm.
I said, what do you think is missing in lighting? And he said everybody thinks that lights all need to be like, these 200 or 300 foot throw, like, 8 bazillion lumen fixtures. How about
Yeah.
something like mid-size, something that replaces like an old Max 700 or, a studio spot or whatever, like something, that you could just use in your typical arena show. And it's kind of cool because I think a lot of companies have come out with that kind of thing, like the Ayrton
Yeah.
Diablo, and
Oh yeah.
every company has their versions of it. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah, I was in Jules Fisher's office once. This was probably, God, 20 years ago.
mhm.
And we're talking about lumen inflation,
Yeah, it's
because
true.
he had plots from what was his big Tony Award winning show back in the 60s. I'm drawing blank now. But
I don't
anyway,
know.
he brought out his plots. We started looking at them, and the light levels back then on Broadway were so dim compared to
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
We just keep making stages brighter and
Uh,
brighter, even though the cameras need less light
and
to
it's
make it
this
look good.
constant battle between the frickin' LED screens and the lights, and it's just
Oh
like this
yeah,
war that's going on that I
yeah,
think is really
yeah.
gonna create blindness in all of our children one day or something.
I
I mean,
hope
it's just
not, but yeah,
insane.
but
Mark
that is
Brickman
it.
still had the funniest line because he said, what's really annoying to me? EDM shows. And I said, why? And he said, well, because the music's kind of cool and the energy's great. I love the vibe and stuff. But if I'm high on Molly, the last thing I want is all these fucking lights just blasting in my face all night, 8 freaking trillion white lights just blasting me in the face. Last thing I want when I'm high on Molly. And I'm like, well, yeah, you got a point there, Mark.
That sounds like Brickman. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen
So
him in a while.
no, me either. Sadly, and he'll tell you all about it because he's not super happy about it. But a lot of the gigs go to younger guys these days, and
Man,
or girls,
right?
and
Yeah,
and he's kind of been left in the cold on that one. Him, John
mm,
Broderick, some of the guys that you and I both know and love and
yeah,
really appreciate as designers. But
yeah. Really, really talented people.
super talented, super smart too. Like just
Yeah.
Broderick is another one of my favorite people, and he
Oh,
he's just
love
completely out
his
of
work.
lighting at this point. Completely
Oh,
out of
really?
lighting.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
been doing a big art project. I can't remember the details. I think it's his father-in-law passed away or something and
Oh yeah.
left a whole huge amount of art. And so he's
Wow.
sort of become
Really
the kind of curator of all of this art,
amazing.
and has been working on exhibits and different
Well,
things. And
I know he's always been into art because if you would go and watch his Metallica shows, if you look at his sets,
yeah,
it always has it's very Dali-esque, or it's
yeah,
very there's
really
always
cool stuff.
something in there that reminds you of the old masters.
Yeah, yeah.
And he studied them, and yeah, he kind of
Super
emulated them.
smart guy. Super, like
Yeah.
I've had 4 hour conversations with that guy that I had to peel myself away from because I was super interested, but I
Right.
had to work. Like I just got to get back to work,
Work keeps
John.
getting in the way.
Especially
Right.
lately because he's retired and
Yeah.
loves to have a good conversation. So whenever
Mm.
you reach out to him, he's more than willing to have a nice talk. But yeah,
I'll have to
so
do that.
It's a bummer with Mark too, because
Yeah.
Mark, I don't think he's bitter about it anymore, but he was, I think, for a while. Uh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know,
agree.
it's
Last time I talked to him several years ago, he was kind of bitter. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What can you do? You know, yeah. I think it's becoming a younger
Life goes
person
on.
industry at this time
Yeah, sure.
which doesn't work
Happens.
out well for you or I.
Yeah, I know. I know so few people now, but although I'm meeting more and more all the time, I just
Yeah,
did a class over at Pulse Lighting in
yeah.
Nashville
That's
and met
cool.
some really cool people. And the funny thing is, one of the guys in my class, um, yeah, oh man, and you're gonna have to edit this because I can't think of his name right now. This is
That's
embarrassing.
funny. That's
But
funny.
this guy in my class, and he was taking notes furiously during class and everything. And the very next week, I went to Austin to work like reunion. And I woke up in the morning, looked at my Facebook, and he'd messaged me and said, "Hey, man, where do you live? Because if we're ever in your area, I'm touring with Old Crow Medicine Show, and I'd like you can come out. I'd like for you to come out and see the show."
Yeah.
And I go, "Old Crow." I go, "Are you playing at Luck Reunion today?" He goes, "Yeah."
Oh,
So
that's
we
hilarious.
we met up that same day. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
hilarious. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, doing those classes that you're doing must really obviously give you exposure to a lot of new people and help you make
yeah.
some new friends and stuff. Are you still looking for this guy's name?
Yes, of course,
Well,
James
you're making
Leach.
this impossible
Sorry,
to
James.
you're making it impossible to edit this out at this point because it's half the podcast already.
That's
So
okay. He knows I'm a scatterbrain.
yeah,
Hey,
I mean,
James.
it's all good, Richard. I was going to mention somebody's name from the podcast that I recorded yesterday, and I decided not even to go into that story because
There
I
you
forget
go.
his name.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't take long. Like I'll shake someone's hand and be introduced to somebody. I'll walk away, and
Yeah.
on my walk away, I'll be like, "What the hell was his name?" Like I
I know,
just met
right?
him 90 seconds
Yeah.
ago. What was his name?
Yeah,
It's
I
not a
know.
good thing.
I've taken to writing it down in my on my phone. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, me too.
So
Like if I
yeah.
don't put things into my calendar, like if I don't say, hey, SIRI, because I don't want bells going off here, remind me tomorrow at 9 a.m. to
Hmm.
do this or
Hmm.
whatever, I just won't
Oh
do it. It
yeah.
ain't going to happen.
I've gotten so dependent on the A word now.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like I do it all. Well, I can't use the A word because my girlfriend who I live with, her son's girlfriend is named Alexa. And, so there's
Oh wow.
constantly things going on.
That
And his
yeah,
name
you'd
is
have to
Alex.
change.
His name is
Yeah,
Alex.
oh
So it's
gee.
just like
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah.
things are confused going, what do you want?
Yeah.
I just want you to shut up.
Yeah. You have to change the trigger word, man. You can
Something.
make it anything
Or
you
just
want.
get rid
Yeah.
of all these A
Yeah.
people,
No. Yeah.
just get rid
Well,
of
the
them.
people,
Go.
okay, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
funny. No, it's
Yeah.
hilarious. So this back to this Willie Nelson thing. So
Yeah.
did you find, like, are there any negatives to using this type of power? Like, are there any things that you have to be like weather or I don't know, like, is there anything that you
Well,
really have to be more careful about?
I mean, like with anything, there's positives and negatives.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest negative is these things are big and heavy.
Yeah.
Although the new ones we're using are on a trailer, so you can just tow them with
Yeah.
literally an F-150 pickup truck.
Yeah.
You don't want to tow them down the road because they weigh what do they weigh 8,000 pounds.
Jesus.
So they're barely trailerable. And then
And
of course you
the
sorry, go
8,000
ahead.
pound one is how many kW?
That one is well, it's 530 kilowatt hours. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
one that's 4.5 times as much energy as last year. I don't remember the wattage output though, what size the inverters are.
So,
Um,
but that one unit would run a stage, or you'd need multiple
oh
units.
yeah, so actually what we did on that one is we output 480 volts to a transformer to drop it down to 12208 because the circuit breaker is, I want to say, 150 amps.
Yeah,
So if you were to run at 120, you could run at 12208, but then you're limited to a 100 amp service. But um, if you run at 480, then you're closer to a 400 amp three phase service by the time you
I
transformer
see.
it down.
Yeah, I see.
So that's how that works. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I mean, I would think that as it gets more common and popular and whatever, you're just going to have like some of those big generator, the semi trailers. You know, you're going to have things like that
Well, there
just
already
keep
are.
getting. Oh, are there?
Cat CES has trailers that are full of NME batteries. There's different battery chemistries, and they have
Yeah,
some that are but that's a it's really made for the construction industry for
yeah,
when they're building buildings. It's not ideal for our use case.
yeah,
But to answer your question, are there any negatives? I mean, the biggest downside is you have to manage your energy and make sure you don't run out and have redundancy. And then when you build a solar farm, you are at the mercy of the weather.
yeah.
If you have a full sunshine day, you get maximum charge, and if it's cloudy, you get somewhat reduced. But you'd be surprised how much energy you can get from the sun even on an overcast day.
Yeah.
But if it's rainy or if it's snowing or something like that, then that's pretty much a washout.
Are these batteries charging while they're being used, or do they have to
You
be taken
can
out
you
of use
can do
to?
that. They're so configurable. They're
Yeah,
so flexible. You can set them up to where, well, what you really want to do is you want to hook them up in series so that if you are charging one, then the other one's being drained, and you can tell it which one to drain from first. And there's so many different ways you can set it up. They're very flexible, very
yeah,
configurable. They're actually, in a lot of ways, the power is much better than a diesel generator. Because think about this, Marcel. When you have a diesel generator and you have your an EDM show, and the audio is pumping, and then you hit that bass drum, and it's gonna every time you hit the bass drum, it moves a lot of air, so it's gonna crank up the current. Well, in order for the generator to produce that current, the diesel engine has to ramp up the torque,
yeah,
and that takes a little while, right?
yeah,
But with
yeah,
the battery, it's a deep well. You can get
yeah,
as much energy spontaneously as you want from
yeah,
this well of energy.
yeah.
So I've heard audio engineers say they think the frequency response is better from the battery
Hmm.
inverter
Yeah.
than from a diesel generator. And it's there's so many
Yeah,
good
that's
things to say
interesting.
about it
That's
that we're
interesting. Audio
learning.
engineers would probably be able to tell the difference. Like,
Right. I
would
wouldn't,
you
but
would
yeah.
things be quicker? Like, would things like actually
Yeah.
happen faster, basically,
I
in
mean,
audio?
well, I know that you can get faster transient responses, and
Interesting.
that's what audio is all about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
so I would guess that we're not that far away from, generators sort of being a thing of the past. Like I must admit I'm not a fan of electric cars. I have,
Mhm.
a big horsepower, V8 and but I think on from a generator standpoint, it seems to me like there's a lot of efficiency and a lot of reasons: the noise, the pollution, the just the air quality, like the fact that people
Yeah.
are sitting there going, "Oh, what's
And
that smell?" or whatever,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And the health issues too,
yeah,
if you so you know that when I worked for high-end systems, I used to travel to Asia a lot.
yeah,
And this was back in the 1990s when I used to run marathons. And so and see, that's why my stories are so boring. I just I don't have any scuba diving vomit stories, or anything like that.
yeah. Well,
uh,
I'll tell you a few. I
yeah.
know
Yeah.
some.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a couple, but anyway.
yeah,
But the point is that I used to go to Beijing, and when I was training, I would go out the door and I'd go run 10 or 15, sometimes 20 miles. And back in the 90s, you would come back from your run and you would be covered in soot from head to toe, and you'd blow your nose and it would all be black,
ugh,
because they burned coal in their fireplaces, right?
right,
But
yeah,
then during the 2008 Olympics, they outlawed that. They said you can't burn coal in fire because they were trying to clean up Beijing.
yeah,
And if you look at medical statistics, what you'll find is there was a drastic increase in or decrease in lung related illnesses from after 2008. So there's a direct correlation
Really?
between the air quality
Hmm.
and the health of the general population. So
Yeah.
that's what we're going for in decarbonizing stages. Now, our industry is just a speck in the galaxy
That's the
of,
problem.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly.
But it doesn't mean you
However,
shouldn't try anything, you
yeah,
know?
no, what we're trying to do is raise awareness. When
Yeah,
Billie Eilish says, "Hey, we're powering the stage off of sunshine," that makes people aware, and that's our goal.
of
And we're,
course. Yeah,
um,
of course. Well, and if Metallica can go out and say, hey, we're the loudest, craziest band in the world and we run on batteries, I mean, that says a lot.
right,
That's a statement,
yeah.
right? Not
Well,
that
it's,
they
it's
do. I mean,
Coldplay that's doing that, but yeah,
yeah, no, I was just making that up. But
I know, I know.
I'm just saying like that kind of thing helps move things forward or whatever.
Sure, exactly.
Uh,
That's the whole point. Yeah,
yeah, but I think without getting into a lengthy discussion about a very boring topic, but I've paid a lot of attention to like these documentaries and stuff about the cobalt mines in
hmm
Africa, and
hmm
that stuff is really depressing. So I think, and Elon Musk
absolutely.
talks about it all the time, like when he says we can't just go all electric cars because
Yeah,
we have to find more sustainable solutions for supply of these batteries. We have
yeah,
to make
right.
friendlier batteries,
Well,
and
if they were friendlier, would that make a big difference? You think?
I think it would. Yeah, I think it
Well,
would.
here's something for you then. A lithium ion battery obviously it has lithium, and it's
Yeah.
got a lot of those other chemicals in it that are hard to get.
Hmm.
But the battery chemistry is moving towards, and this is what we use, which is lithium iron phosphate batteries.
Okay.
It's still classified as a lithium ion battery, but it's got way fewer of those rare chemicals that are causing the
Well,
issues.
isn't phosphate hard to get right now? Like, isn't that one of the things that?
Well, but the amount, it's the quantities that are in it. They're very,
Yeah.
very small. So if and also, you've seen the and read the stories about lithium iron catching fire, and those hoverboards spontaneously
Yeah.
combusting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Lithium iron phosphate does not do that. It has a very low probability of thermal runaway.
Hmm.
So they're much safer. They're better for the environment. And so, and that's the way science works is, you start off with something crude and then you refine it. It gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
And that's the direction that we're moving with
Yeah.
battery
No,
chemistry.
again, I love that. Like I said, I'm
Yeah,
not somebody who is going to be first in line for the next
sure.
e-car. But
Yeah.
at the
But I
same
bet
time,
I bet that e-car can blow you off the line though
well,
with
that's
your
the
six
thing.
cylinder.
That's the thing. Like,
Right.
um, what's his name? Joe Rogan, your fellow Austinite, is always
Uh,
talking about his Tesla. He's got
yeah.
the is it called Black? Is it the
Yeah.
Tesla Black Edition or something? I forget what it's called, but it's the one with the little
Okay.
rectangular steering wheel, and it's like 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. I think 1.9
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, I
Like
know. They're
1.9
incredibly
seconds.
fast.
This is
Yeah. And
insane.
and I haven't
So.
watched Formula E, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, no. Now you lost me, my friend. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I hate
I had to
Formula
go
E. I
there.
can't
Okay.
stand it. It's
Okay.
just
All right.
I don't even like the current hybrid Formula One cars. The sound
Oh
just
yeah.
isn't what it was, in the
Yeah.
'90s, like that
I
screaming
like that
sound
though.
in the '90s.
I have a Formula boat. You know,
Yeah,
what is it? An 8 cylinder or 6 cylinder? I don't know. It's a gasoline engine.
yeah,
I would love to have an electric boat
yeah,
because I love to sail just
yeah,
because it's so peaceful and quiet.
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
wait to get an electric boat.
That to me, boats and airplanes to me
Yeah,
are something that I think makes a huge amount of sense. I think cars eventually
yeah,
make sense too, but
yeah,
cars, there's too much passion around the sound and the sort of visceral feel of all of that stuff.
yeah. I
Like
hear
too
you.
many of
Yeah,
us were born in the '60s and grew up with muscle cars and stuff. It's
right.
just too hard to take those cars away from us. Maybe
I hear you.
19-year-old kids growing up today are like, I don't care if it's got an
Right,
electric motor.
right.
It doesn't make
Yeah,
any difference to me.
right.
But,
Yeah,
obviously there's some pushback because all the e-cars aren't doing so well right now other than Tesla.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
a friend of mine, idiot, bought a Fisker Ocean, the Fisker SUV. He
Ooh.
just got it delivered a couple months ago, and I was like, "What are you doing? Like, aren't they bordering on bankruptcy again?" Like, he went bankrupt. Chinese company bought it and came out with that karma thing, and then I think they're bankrupt. And then he started another Fisker, and now they're going bankrupt as well. But
Oh,
anyways,
gee.
he got the car. By the time he ordered it 2 years ago, by the time he got it, there's no dealerships, so
Oh,
they
no.
deliver it to your door on a truck, and really bad delivery experience. And so he
Yeah.
got it, and then he needed service or whatever. He calls Fisker, and they're like, "Yeah, you got to call this guy on his cell phone or whatever." There's like one technician in the South Florida
Oh,
region.
no.
And so now, just yesterday, he called me and he goes, "You're not going to believe this." And I said, "What, your car died?" And he goes, "No, worse." And I said, "What?" And he said, because they need desperately cash, they just dropped their price by $14,000 on every model.
Oh,
On every
wow.
model. So he
Oh,
bought this SUV. He bought a base model of it and paid like $40,000, but now it's
wow.
24,000 or whatever it is, right?
You know what
And
that
so
reminds me of?
what?
When Martin came out with the Mac 500 and 600 and high end dropped the price on the studio colors. Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
I
Were you?
do.
Were
Yeah.
you? Yeah,
Yeah. No, I that was right when I
because all these
started.
people, yeah, all these people just bought a whole bunch of them, and then we dropped the price, and they were not happy.
That's a tough one to swallow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
never an easy one to swallow. But I mean,
I
he
mean that's
literally
going
just
back
took
a way.
delivery on this thing a couple months ago, and he's already down
Wow,
15 grand or whatever.
ah,
He's like,
that's
and
awful.
plus, like he can't get a temporary tag for it. He can't get a tag for it because,
Wow,
you know, for whatever reason, the car can't be registered here except as a certain type, and the company has to get you the tag, and it's crazy.
sounds
It's
like a
such a bad
lawsuit
situation.
waiting to happen.
Well, that's what I said. I said, you got to do a search. There's got to be a class action suit going right now
Yeah.
on it,
Oh yeah.
because it's a mess. But,
Yeah.
anyways, well, that's really cool.
Anyway,
I'm glad you're doing that because, I mean, it takes a guy
yeah, it's a
like
lot of
you,
fun.
it takes a bunch of guys like you, but certainly, one
Well,
really smart, really noisy guy
well,
who writes lots
I
of
got to
books.
tell
And
you, the guys that started Overdrive Energy Solutions, Neil Vasavada and Boxer Hardison, those guys in LA, those are really the guys who put this thing together. And then they picked up a guy named Sean Jacob, who was the carpenter for Roger Waters. He's a guy who flew the Pig,
yeah,
and yeah. So, but he is off the charts brilliant. He's got a master's degree in electrical engineering, but he's working as a carpenter. Go figure.
that's
But
crazy.
yeah, but these guys. I mean, when we do these events, I mean, I just feel so like I'm just surrounded by brilliance.
That's
They're
wild.
really really, yeah. It's a
So
great team.
Overdrive is specifically for our industry, like it's a power
Hmm.
company for the industry. That's
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Yeah,
Interesting. And how long have they been around?
about 4 5 years.
And they've always been batteries? It's all been built on batteries, the whole thing?
Yeah, they
Or
started the company. They started the company with that idea. Yeah, I think Neil started the company, and then he brought in some other people.
interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool. I'm going to have to reach out to those guys. Maybe I'll get them on the podcast.
yeah.
Talk to them.
Neil would love to be on the podcast,
Yeah. Well, if you
and
think of
Sean
it,
too,
connect me on an email.
maybe Boxer. Yeah, okay. Yep.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So you've moved all of your stuff over to Substack now, and it's
Hmm.
funny because I obviously pay a lot of attention to that kind of stuff, but I would assume that 90% of our industry have no idea what the hell Substack is or why somebody would need it or anything. Um,
Yeah.
so why Substack? Was that so that you were able to monetize it, or was there other reasons? Was it just a good platform?
No, not at all. So I used to have a newsletter before the
Yeah, I remember.
pandemic, and
Yeah.
I just collected email addresses over a period of time, and I was up to like 3,000 email addresses or something like that.
Yeah.
And I would just like, once a month, I would write a newsletter, and I'd try to put 3 or 4 articles in it, and I'd send it out. But then during the pandemic, I stopped doing it because everything was turned upside down.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of this year, or at the end of last year, I should say, I decided, okay, it's time. I need to start that newsletter again. I started looking around for a better platform.
Yeah.
Not, I was using, what was I using? I can't remember now, but it was okay, but it wasn't spectacular. But I kept seeing this Substack thing.
Yeah.
And really what made me um, look at it a bit closer was a friend of mine named David Four. He used to play drums in a band called Bubble Puppy. They had a huge hit.
Jesus, where do you come
Um,
up with these band names? You keep mentioning. I thought I knew a lot about music until you
oh,
started
well,
mentioning all these band names.
yeah, you're a little bit too young to remember Bubble Puppy. They were on American Bandstand in the late '60s, early '70s, and they toured with Steppenwolf. And they had a hit called "Hot Smoke and Sassafras," and yeah,
Wow.
they were one of those psychedelic rock bands. And David's a friend of mine. We played in a band together in the '90s, in the '80s actually, in Austin. And he started writing a Substack about his experience with Bubble Puppy.
Okay.
And so I, of course, subscribed and started reading it. And I thought, wow, this looks like a really interesting little platform here. So I started looking into it. And as soon as I logged on and read about it, I'm like, oh, I'm in. This is it. It's great because it
Yeah.
basically handles everything on the back end. All you have to do is blog. You don't have to worry about, you know, any of the details. It's just it's very well done. And
Yeah.
it also has, you can, not only can you write, but you can vlog, you can
Yeah.
post videos, you can, and you have the option to monetize it. Now, when I set mine up, I thought, well, I'll just do it for free. And then I thought, well, what would hurt to, add the option if somebody wants to
Get deeper content or
pay.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And now
Yeah.
I have, like, I think there's 17 paid subscribers, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And,
That's really cool.
but really, yeah, but really the main point is I want to get information out there,
Yeah.
and the reason I chose the top, I call it Stagehand 101,
Yeah.
because when I restarted this thing in January of this year, 2024, so that when you're looking back 10 years from now, you'll know what today is. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but when I started it, I all of last year and the year before, as I go around teaching classes, one of the most consistent things that I heard was that we had a talent drain during the pandemic. And a lot of the people coming in the industry today have very little experience. So I thought, okay, well, let's back up a notch and let's start at the foundation. Let's talk about those very foundational things, how to be a stagehand. So
Yeah.
that's what I started writing about. And it's been a lot of
Interesting.
fun. I really enjoy it.
Well, as a thought, like one of the things you could do is you know, record all of your classes, which you probably do already anyways, but then actually get, someone maybe overseas or something to do some really cool editing for all your classes and put those behind a paywall, you know?
I've already actually done. I've been doing that for probably 7 years. So
Oh,
about
really?
7 or 8 years ago, I had a class over at Full Sail University, and they have a nice stage, and they have students there who know how to run video cameras, and they
Yeah.
even had a jib.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we did a three camera shoot, and I ended up with 21 hours of raw video, which I then edited into 72 short modules, about 10 to 15 minutes each. And then at
Interesting.
the end of every module, I put a quiz. So that's on my APTXL website. So if you go online, you can pay for that course, and
Hmm.
it's an ETC recognized course.
Yeah.
So if you take the class online, you get the same renewal credits, ETCP renewal credits, that you would get if you came to my class in person.
Huh. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but
at the end of the day, like I think so many people, probably yourself included, have like not really imposter syndrome, but like I'm a crook if I charge people, and I just don't agree with that at all. Like because you're investing more time into this than most people in our industry invest into their careers, period. And you have every right to get paid for that content. I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't. So, to me, it's a freemium model and always should be a freemium model, where you give away 50% of it. And if you want the
mhm.
other 50%, you have to subscribe. And I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's my goal with
you'll
the
make your way
Substack.
there. Yeah. You know who
Yeah.
does a really good job of it on Substack, and you may have already been reading his stuff, is a guy named Lenny Rikowski or something. But if you just search for Lenny's podcast, he's got like 1 million subscribers or something.
Wow.
And he's a tech guy, like, programming tech, coding tech kind of
Okay.
guy.
Oh,
And just a super smart guy, really, really smart guy, and a really interesting podcast if you're interested in that kind of tech. I mean, for me, I have
absolutely.
to be.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
and he's just done an incredible job, and now he's spun it into a podcast. He's spun it into
Hmm.
YouTube channels and all kinds of other stuff too. And that's basically his gig now, and he's making a load of money from it. I think he was one of the
Okay.
original coders from Airbnb or something.
Oh.
Just a super, super smart dude, but he's done a really good job. I wouldn't call it monopolizing, but finding a way to monetize his content through Substack. Really good, probably better than most people. So
Well, thanks for the tip. I will definitely check that out.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
not heard of him before.
What's Academy of Production Technology? You just mentioned it, I think. And so what
Yeah,
is that?
that was my grandiose idea way back in the day. So I've been teaching classes um, since what I would say, man, late '90s. Steve Irwin and I attempted to do online training
I remember that.
before. Yeah, we were too far ahead of the curve, and
Yeah,
it didn't really catch on. But then what really made it catch on was in 2006, I believe it was, when they started the ETCP certification program.
yeah,
Then people needed to prepare to take the exam, and that's when the classes really started to take off. And back then, even before then, I think a couple of years before then, I had uh, put together what I thought would eventually become like a real academy.
yeah.
And over the years, I've learned that it's really more challenging than you might think. So it's really just my business training, which turns out to be me.
That's
So
a better way to
uh,
do it. That's a better
yeah,
way to do it. Like, look at how many health experts are out giving you better information than doctors. And yeah, they've got disclaimers that say, I'm not a medical doctor, seek advice from your
hmm
medical doctor, or I'm not a lawyer, seek advice from your lawyer. Those guys are making more money than the doctors and the lawyers, these guys and they're better people to take information from because they're not necessarily bound by the same, restrictions or whatever it is, right? They can talk, they can promote, they can do things that maybe a lawyer or a
right.
doctor can't do. So,
Yeah. So a few years ago, I kind of put more emphasis on building my brand as my name rather
yeah,
than the academy. But
yeah,
I still, a bank account. When somebody pays me, you can either write a check to me or you can write it to Academy of Production Technology.
yeah.
And when you go online,
Write a check. How old
the
are you, man? Write
well,
a
you'd be
check.
surprised how many people still write checks,
Oh my
especially the
God.
unions. Yeah,
I
yeah.
have the Gear Source checkbook here, and I don't even know where it is anymore. Like, I have no idea. If
I don't
somebody
I
told
don't
me we
write
need
them,
a
but
check, I'd be
hey,
like, oh shit.
yeah, you know what? If somebody wants to write me a check, bring it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take cash, check,
Well, and now
credit
you can
card,
just
whatever.
take a picture of them and deposit them. But
Right.
other than the government, I don't
Yeah.
know that I've seen a check from somebody in years. Like, you just
Oh,
don't
I
get
get a
checks
ton of
anymore.
them.
Really?
Yeah, I get
That's
paid by
interesting.
check all the time. Yeah.
That's wild,
Yeah.
huh? Hmm.
Yeah. I know. It's
Go
crazy, isn't it?
figure.
Go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah, well, I love what you're
Right.
doing. Like, I love all
Well,
those
thanks.
components, and I also know how hard it is to do by yourself. And one thing I would definitely recommend is I've got this lady named Sarah who is a godsend. Find yourself a Sarah. Find
Yeah.
yourself someone who is as passionate about what you're doing as you are. Like, Sarah's just
Yeah.
in love with our podcast. She's in love with our industry. She loves all the people.
Cool.
She's as enthusiastic as she seems when she's getting you signed on. And
Yeah.
because we're set up the way we are, she's 100% remote. I've never even met Sarah, and I've known her for, I don't know, 3 years now or something.
Really?
Never
Wow.
even
That's
met her.
amazing.
She lives on Crete, and she's
Wow.
British, but she lives on Crete. And,
Fabulous.
she's got this great lifestyle in Crete, and she just happens to
Yeah.
have this fully remote gig as a producer for a podcast. She used to work for
Nice.
Formula One. Sarah did.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
she used to travel the world with Formula One and
That's
settled
great.
down, got married to a Greek guy on Crete, and
Mm-hmm.
she lives there, has a beautiful life, and
Mm.
so yeah. But I mean, find yourself that person, and
Yeah.
it'll just explode your business. It'll
Yeah, and
you're
this industry attracts people like that, doesn't it? Who are just really passionate about what
yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. I mean, it really is obviously a great industry from a standpoint of the people and the passion and the stories and all of that stuff. And I love that about
Yeah.
our industry. There's some things that
Yeah.
maybe I don't love about our industry some days, but I do love that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you deserve to obviously not only prosper from this, but to earn a really good living and to have a lifestyle and all of those things. But also, I think the world needs a little bit more of your information. And to do that, you got to create a platform that can
Right.
go wide enough that can get all that information out where you don't have to be involved in every single one of those aspects. And that's obviously the penultimate goal for any like information based business like yours, right? Is to
Yeah, and I agree. For many many years, there was only on the job training. I mean, yeah, you can go to university, you can go to college, and learn some aspects of it, but the kind of stuff that we're learning now and that we're doing now, a lot of it's not taught in colleges or universities,
yeah.
and so it's not getting any simpler. Marcel,
No.
the technology is getting more and more advanced all the time, and it just takes more training you
Yeah.
know and yeah, you're right, that information needs to be documented, needs to be broadcast, it needs to be disseminated better,
Yeah.
and any tools like that that help get it out there
Yeah.
are really a bonus.
Well,
So
and you're I think producing more practical information too. Like the problem is, there's school, what school teaches you, and then there's
yeah.
what you actually learn on the gig, which is
Yeah.
totally different. And so, filling that gap I think is really super important, preparing people, especially now. Like right
Hmm.
now there is such an opportunity to take regular people who are coming either out of, theater college or whatever it is, or they're just coming off the street and saying, yeah, I think I'd try out this touring thing. Who preps them for that stuff? You
Right.
know, who teaches them not to shit on the bus until they shit on the bus and get beat up for it? Who
Right.
teaches them these things? And
Yeah.
I mean, more so the safety things and stuff. I'm just kidding about the bus etiquette, but that's also important. It's important that they
Yeah.
learn that stuff. But,
Yeah, and the funny thing is that, like you, I was a musician. I always wanted to be a musician, but my parents always wanted me to be an engineer. So,
yeah.
I kind of acquiesced to them. So when I went to college, I studied electrical engineering, but
Mm,
my head was always in music. But it was fortunate because when I did get into the lighting industry, all that stuff I learned in college helped out so much,
yeah.
but it's all theory. If you ever take engineering classes, it's all math, it's all theory. I mean, very, very little practical application at all. So, what I had to do when I started working in the industry is connect the dots between the theory and the real world. And
Yeah.
still to this day, I'm still trying to make those connections. And those are the things I like to write about. When I connect, things like today, or actually this morning, I sent out a Substack about how to coil cables and
I saw that.
why some
Yeah.
some cables get destroyed.
Somebody said
And
tequila makes them all wobbly or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw that.
yeah,
I saw that
or
post
or
right
the
before I
person
got on.
coiling it.
Yeah, yeah. Is it
Uh,
the cable or
yeah,
the person coiling it who's
right.
on drinking the tequila?
But yeah, but those are the kind of things where you take a real world problem and you go, how does this happen? What's the theory behind it? And then you think about it, you make the connection, and then you write about it. So that's
Yeah.
that's what I try to do.
Speaking
And
of
so,
cables, this is
yeah,
way off topic. I'm sorry, but
okay,
I was recently at Volt Lighting in LA. I don't know if you've been to their shop, Matt's shop. Um,
I think so.
it's Matt. God, I'm going to screw up his last name. Shimamoto.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And wonderful guy. Just him and his partner are
yeah,
beautiful people.
yep,
Their shop is
yep,
amazing. It's a stunning
yeah,
shop, but they've got this cable department where I'm like, are those guys doing what I think they're doing? Like, they're literally washing every single cable before it goes back into the box. And the way they wrap them is surgical. Like, it is unreal. I've got pictures. I should send it to you because I was shocked.
Yeah.
Like, every cable
Yeah.
is this perfect little donut cable that
Yeah.
is so clean you could lick it and you wouldn't taste anything. I mean, it's unreal.
Marcel, don't
nice
lick the
these
cable,
cables are.
okay?
Well, I've been known to lick a doorknob or two, but I was just blown away by it. Like, that to me is a level of quality that
Yeah.
people will notice when those cables show up
Yeah.
on a rental.
Absolutely.
They're going to be like, oh,
It
these
makes a
must be
difference.
from Volt, right? Yeah, these are from Volt.
Yeah, no, I've seen those before in a couple of shops. I want to say PRG has a cable washer, and I think Four Wall might also, and they also have a cable coiler.
Yeah.
And have you been to the Four Wall shop in
hand.
Vegas?
These guys do it by hand. I mean, it's like
Oh,
it's
wow.
a thing
Oh,
to
wow.
watch. The washing and the coiling of the cables is a
Really?
thing to watch. It's unreal. Like,
Wait,
I was
you're
blown
saying
away.
they
coil
coil them by hand?
They coil them
Oh,
by hand.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
I'd love to
whole
see that.
process is done by
Yeah.
hand. It's unreal.
Yeah.
It really is amazing. Sorry, what were
Wow,
you saying
cool.
before? You just
Oh,
said something.
have you been to the Four Wall shop in Vegas? It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
And
very nice.
Sorry, I
Cables.
bite my tongue. Okay, edit this out now. Have you been to the Christie shop in Vegas, Marcel? Because they have a robot that goes around and can get stuff off of the high racks, forklift kind of
I think
thing.
I've only been to the office. I don't know if I went into the shop then because
Okay.
I don't remember
Yeah.
seeing that. That's cool.
But the point is that a lot of the stuff is being modernized,
Yeah.
and which we need because
Of course.
the amount of gear these days is mind blowing. I
It's
did a
unreal.
gig in New York City right just after the pandemic at the Jacob Javits Center, and the gear showed up totally unprepped. Because they didn't have the labor to do it back then. It was just coming out of the pandemic. So we need ways to better handle gear and kind of automate it so that it gets done even when you have fewer people in the shop.
Yeah.
So,
Well, even just like standardized RFID codes and things like that,
Right.
just really obvious, simple answers,
Yeah.
like manufacturers
Yeah.
shipping things with standardized RFID codes that everybody can
Yeah.
use, and giving
Well,
them
maybe
the thing
the-
to upload this file into your readers or whatever. I don't
maybe
know.
the answer is AI.
Of course it is. That's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
No,
let's
not
get into
really.
that because I want to talk about AI
Yeah,
and for starters, like have you seen this new Sora video?
No.
Do you know what Sora is?
No.
Sora is the video generation AI that Hollywood's freaking out about. Like it's what's behind
right.
a lot
Yeah,
of
I've
these.
heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what's behind
read
a lot
about
of these strikes and just a lot of the actions that are happening. And like what's his name? Tyler Perry stopped construction on his $800 million studio because of Sora. But if you Google Sora balloon head, there's this video that they generated that's just a guy who's got a balloon for a head, and it's 100% AI generated. It's unbelievable. It's
Really?
mind-blowing.
Wow.
It's like, holy shit. This is where we're at already. Like, where are we going to be a few years from now? Another cool thing to listen to is Rogan's talk with Kurzweil a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. And Kurzweil just saying, where we're going to be by 2029 is just like so much further ahead than we are right now.
Ray Kurzweil is the guy. He's brilliant. So
he's a smart dude. He's a smart dude. But yeah, I mean, Sora's a wild one. DALL-E's a wild one. A lot of the sort of custom GPTs I look at are pretty crazy, as far as being able to write legal documents. Like you can get a special legal GPT that is very much formatted for, because, where I think a lot of people get stuck and go, this stupid AI stuff is ridiculous. It writes garbage. It's writing blogs for me and they're just terrible, that you can tell they're written by AI. Well, that's because you don't know how to prompt it. The
Hmm.
prompting is the magic for these
Yep.
AI systems.
Yep.
But so, you know, first of all, like, are you using any AI? I would guess helping you to write your blogs and stuff. You're using it.
I use Chat GPT a lot, not
Yeah.
to write blogs, but so the first real practical use that I found for it is actually to write JavaScript,
Yeah.
write applications. Because I used to do that several years ago. I had the idea, well, write an app that has to do that will help people study for the ETCP Electrical Entertainment Electrician's certification exam.
That's
So
cool.
things like how to practice Ohm's law calculations and power formula calculations. So I taught myself JavaScript, and I used to, like, when I was in high school, I took some programming classes. In college in electrical engineering, they make you take programming classes. So I've programmed before, but not JavaScript. So I taught myself to write JavaScript. I wrote a couple of apps, but it took me a month to write a very simple
Yeah.
app,
Yeah.
and then when I started reading about Chat GPT, and in particular, I heard a New York Times podcast about how clever it is writing code. So I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. So I sat down, I gave it a couple of prompts, and within 30 minutes, I had an app that would have taken me a month to write,
That's
and it was far
incredible.
better.
That's
Yeah. So I've
incredible.
so I've written a couple of like that are on my website. So if you go under aptxl.com resources, then there's some apps that will help you, basically be a better entertainment electrician or
That's really cool.
power guy
Yeah,
or
that's really
girl.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. And then another thing I use it for is just research. Because if I want to know, for example, like when I was writing this cable article, you know, um, I was talking to Harry Box, who wrote the Set Technician's Handbook, which is the Bible for gaffers and grips in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and he's really the guy when it comes to um, you know that particular topic. So I shot him an email and I said, hey man, on page 266 of your book, you talk about coiling cable. I said, where did you get that information from? Is it just field experience, or did you source it somewhere? He goes, well, originally I think I sourced it from a cable manufacturer. He goes, I think it was Carroll Cable, but I can't find the original source right now. So I went, now I could go online and I can Google Carroll Cable coiling cable techniques or something like that.
Yeah.
But I find it's much more efficient if you go to Chat GPT and you type in the same prompt, because it will then search all of these different sources and it'll give you what you're looking for much quicker.
Yeah.
And it's not always 100% accurate, but if you know anything about coil and cable, you can spot it right off the bat. You'll
Yeah.
know whether or not
Well, and
it's good info.
you can also in your prompt, you can tell it not to make shit up, and you can tell it what results you want back, what you want them to look like. Like you could say, what was
Yeah.
his name, Harry? You could
Harry
say,
Box, yeah.
yeah, you could say, um, acting like Harry Box, tell me about this or that, and it'll
Yeah.
research his book for you and find that
Yeah.
information or whatever, right? Like it really is incredible, and it's all down to the prompting, and I'm still learning a lot,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
the
me too.
one of the things when I went to the paid version is you can talk to it. Like you can just communicate. You can just
Right.
basically talk to it like you're talking to an employee. Like let's
Exactly.
say you have an employee who maybe is from overseas or something, and you have to really explain things to them. Tell them
Mhm.
exactly. I want it to be yellow. I want it to be 7 lines long with bullet points. I want it to be this. I want it to be that. I want it to be in 20-point font. You know, it'll give you exactly what you've asked for pretty much with the occasional mistake, but it's
Yeah,
really incredible. I'm blown
it
away by
is.
the uses.
But I didn't know you could tell it not to make stuff up. That's good to know.
You can.
That's
Yeah, you
okay.
can. And you can also say don't apologize. You can tell it not to apologize. I've found some
Yeah.
really great in I can show you this later, but in your setup on Chat GPT, you can put some things in there, and I forget what they call it, but you can basically put in some formatting things that will tell it never lie to me, never do this, never do that, always do this. You
Oh
can put
wow.
some rules in basically, and it'll
Okay.
always use that formatting in your responses. But
Oh,
have
that's
you
great.
have you written any custom GPTs yet, or anything that you're?
No, that's something I am definitely interested in doing. I don't know
Yeah.
how to do it, but I've read that you can do that.
People make it look so easy. Like, I've watched so many
Yeah,
YouTube videos and stuff on it, and I'm an
really.
idiot when it comes to that stuff. You'll have an easy time with it. Me, not so much. But it really does look extremely simple to do it. And, especially for fairly basic functions. And then now I don't know if they've launched it yet, but they either did or they're about to launch like a GPT shop, like a store where,
Oh, wow.
like an app store where you can go and you can actually monetize these GPTs that you're creating, so
Oh,
that
cool.
people can go on this app store thing and pay you 99 cents for this
Mm,
GPT that
mm.
you've created, custom GPT. So
Wow.
not that that's a business I would get into,
Right.
but yeah, getting into the bigger picture of AI. And I had this conversation yesterday with Josh Allen from 3LR. I don't know
Hmm.
if you know Josh, but really
Oh,
great
sure.
designer, really smart guy. And obviously our industry is pretty freaked out about you know watching jobs go away.
Right.
Uh, Programmers, lighting directors, whatever it is, whatever job it is. But some of the writing is on the wall on some of those things, I think, and then other things, it's probably going to be an awful long time before you see that go away. But do you have any thoughts on that? Like, as far as
I do.
boards that program themselves, like, instead of having a
Yeah.
programmer there at rehearsals where you just talk to the
Yeah.
board and you say, now I want a look that's,
Hmm.
sort of pinkish, but kind of bluish
Yeah.
and does this and does that,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I have a different take on the jobs thing, and I think it's important because obviously we need jobs, we need money, we need to be able to
Yeah.
feed our families and put food on the table. But there used to be back in the 1930s, there was a college professor at Yale named George Eisenhower, and he's a contemporary of McCandless, and he was brilliant. He was way ahead of his time, and what he tried to do was to make robotic lighting in the 1930s. He attempted it and failed, and because the technology wasn't there yet.
Hmm.
And then in 19 in the 1950s, um, the movie producer, what's his name? Escape it. Italian producer was going to make this movie. I think it's called Under the Big Top, about a circus family, and they have not these giant tents like Cirque du Soleil with 90-foot poles, and they wanted to be able to. I'll think of the producer's name in a minute, but um, they wanted to be able to refocus the lighting without having to climb up these 90-foot structures. So he called Eisenhower and he said, "Can you make a motorized Fresnel?" So he took a strand featherlight Fresnel and he motorized it, pan and tilt, and so they could refocus it from the ground level, and it worked. And so then in the 1960s, um, they took those same lights and they put them in Rockefeller Center Studio 8H, I think it is, where they shoot Saturday Night Live today.
Hmm.
This is back in the 1960s. Now, Eisenhower had written a couple of books about this, which I read, and I wanted back in, I want to say, the 2000s. I wanted to talk to him about them. So I tracked him down. He was living in a nursing home. He was 91 years old at the time, and I called him up, and he was very friendly, very nice guy. Um, and I had a long talk with him, and he told me a story about that. He said that when they put those motorized Fresnels in Rockefeller Center, um, in the studio there, that the stagehands were in fear of losing their jobs. So mysteriously overnight, the gearboxes were filled with sand. So
Of
they
course.
broke them,
Of
you know.
course.
And so the lesson from that, the takeaway from that for me is that today we have lots and lots of automated lighting, and none of those jobs have gone away. They've only multiplied. Now the job has changed,
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen with AI. I believe that jobs are going to morph. I think that more jobs will be created, and that the jobs will change. And as either you can adapt to it, in which case you'll stay employed, or you'll get replaced by younger people who will come in and just automatically gravitate to the stuff.
I
But in
completely
term,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. But in terms of how it's going to change, I mean, I've been predicting voice control for for automated lighting for too many years. And Larry Cotton actually did that at High End Systems back in the 19, let me think about this, was it the yeah, it was the 90s, the mid 90s.
Yeah.
He had a status queue that he had a headset, and he could give it commands, and it would take his command, and it would do things like change the color of lights. The
Yeah.
problem was you go into a noisy environment and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So you had to be in a room by yourself to make it work. Well, the technology is far more advanced today.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
but so
Well,
so
and
I could
plus
easily
once you
envision.
get Neuralink, you'll just think about it. And
Right,
the
boy, that will be
MA3
something.
console will change
Yeah.
color or whatever. You'll
Oh
just
my
think,
gosh.
God, this would be
Yeah.
better in red,
Yeah. Yeah.
and boom,
But
it's red.
if you think about, I think all the components are there. Think about this. So just like you've used Dolly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you give it a prompt and you say, create a red stage wash with, and then take two profile fixtures and put them in straw yellow, and focus them down stage center, and it will create that picture. Well, how difficult would it be to have, instead of a picture, it's actually hooked up to Vectorworks, which then tells the console, which then tells the lights what to do. So you basically are giving it prompts instead of typing out commands on a keyboard.
Well,
You know,
how about even more advanced than that, where it says, create a look similar to, uh, Michael Jackson when Peter Morse designed the Dangerous tour back in, 19 whatever, and, add in today's style of fixtures, but a similar look to this song or
yeah,
whatever. Like, I mean, you're just going to be, tr- make a look that looks like Roy Bennett. Give me a Roy Bennett
yeah,
look. Give me a
yeah,
Peter Morse look. Give me a Mark Brickman look. That
right.
stuff's coming. That's all coming.
Yeah, no,
You
I
know.
agree. And I had the idea probably 3 years ago. If you took a bunch of college kids and you paid them, I don't know, $15 an hour and a six pack of beer to
Yeah.
sit down and watch YouTube videos and grade
You're
the,
giving college kids beer, Richard?
well, I mean, if they're
Jesus,
21.
what are you promoting here? What are you
uh,
promoting?
but no, if you said, okay, which of these videos do you like the best? Is it Pink Floyd? Is it Madonna? Is it U2? And then you sort them by that, and then you say, okay, what is it about that video that you like? Do you like the color combinations? And then you get down to this granular, sort of place where you can choose the best color combinations, the best focus positions, and then you can use those as your building blocks. And now, when I made that suggestion, and I think I wrote about it somewhere, I just had this idea, and of course, it was not received well, because lighting designers are going, oh, you can't do that, and maybe they have a point. I'm willing to accept that some of this may be totally off the rails, but I think in order to advance art, you have to take chances, and there's going to be a lot of failures, but that's how you move the ball forward.
Well, the genie's out of the bottle too. This
Right,
isn't. You can't
right.
just stop it. You can't just
I
stop it.
totally agree.
You can't
Yeah,
stop it
no,
at this point. So you got to either figure out a way to, either protect, lighting designs, or protect this or that. But I mean, there's nothing. There's no intellectual property in a lighting look or whatever, right? It's
right.
just another lighting look. You program the lights to do a certain thing. Anyone could program the lights to do a certain thing. So it's tough. And believe me, I'm
Yeah,
I'm for the lighting designers on this one.
absolutely,
But I think
absolutely.
that it's coming, it's going to happen. Like, think of artists
Yeah.
right now. Artists, like, you can just go to Chat GPT today or Dolly and say, now create that image in the vision of, and, insert artist here, and it'll completely change it to be their style of painting or drawing or whatever it is,
Yeah,
right?
right. But at the end of the day, it's another tool, and that's really what advances art is tools. If you think about, for example, Diego Rivera, when he was a great muralist, but what he was trying to do back in the 30s, they didn't have the techniques, but he invented his own technique. That's his tool to do that. The same with who was it? Michelangelo, I think,
Mm-hmm.
invented his own pigments. I think it was to paint with because they didn't have anything that had enough saturation. So
Mm.
he would mix his own paints. Um, so I look at it as a brilliant tool. If the right person, if Roy Bennett would embrace it, or if Peter Morris would embrace it, or Mark Brickman would embrace it and really um, take it to the limit. That's how you create, just mind blowing art that nobody's ever
It's going
seen
to be
before.
interesting because, one of the
Yeah.
things that I think is going to be a very slow roll on this is the manufacturers putting in the technology to basically use AI in these consoles. And because, who's going to be brave enough to do that? It's going to
Yeah.
require a lot of courage to go out and say, hey, we don't need lighting programmers anymore. You can
Yeah. I
program
don't
this
think it's
thing
going to
with your
be.
thoughts.
I don't think it's going to be the program. I mean, I don't think it's going to be the manufacturers. I think it's going to be individuals. It's going to be people. Um, I'm drawing a blank on his name. But there used to be a guy. Well, he's still around. There's a guy who used to work for Amazon, and if you work for Amazon, they allow you to have side projects. And his side project was coming to the standards meetings at the ESTA standards meetings, and
Right.
he would, invent technology. He created pages like there's a Raspberry Pi page, how to build a RDM device or something like that.
Hmm.
And that he just, we are talking about people who are passionate before.
Yeah.
That's what somebody who's passionate about doing what we're talking about. Those are the
Right.
people who are going to make it happen.
But still, the until the consoles, like, until you have an AI supported or AI driven or AI powered console,
Yeah.
you're not going to have someone who can just talk to a console and have it, do things for you. And
Well, yeah, maybe you're right, and that just reminded me, Marcel. I just came back from Seattle at USITT, and guess
yeah.
what? Vectorworks has integrated an AI into Vectorworks. So
Oh, interesting.
when yeah, you can build a 3D model, and then I hope I can talk about this. This might be a bit premature, but anyway,
Did you sign an NDA? Because if
no,
you
I did
did,
not.
don't
So
talk. Oh, okay, then you're good.
no, no. But what you can do is you can give it prompts to create renderings.
Okay.
So based on your stage design,
Yeah.
and you can scale it. Either you can tell it how creative to get or how true to your design to stay. There's some levers some sliders you can move around to get different results.
Yeah.
But that's the start, I think, of being able to say create a look with a blue wash and yellow beams, and then if it can translate it in Vectorworks to DMX and send it to the console, then it's a done deal.
Well,
So
and also, what about, like, being able to design the rig and then design all the, infrastructure, cabling, and everything else, without having to do any of that work? Basically say,
yeah.
I mean, to me, you're going to get rid of a lot of the redundant stuff. And, I was talking to
Mhm.
Josh Allen about that yesterday. Like, he said already in a lot of his spec work, he's able to remove just tens of hours on just, writing specs, and these
Yeah.
long specs for a cruise ship or whatever, that now you can just use AI to do it because, it's pretty straightforward stuff, but you have to write it. And
Right.
so, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you can automate like that, it makes sense. Totally makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
just, I know like at LDI, I wasn't there this year for the first time, but at LDI, there
you
was
missed
a,
a good one.
yeah, I know. I've heard way too much about it. It pisses me off. I was so mad when I wasn't there because everybody was posting best LDI ever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, you know,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. It was good.
but there was a control company, and I don't know who it was, but they had a big sign up on their booth, AI, you get rid of your
Hmm.
lighting designer or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, I don't think it was that
Yeah.
blatant, but
No,
people were
what
going
they did
crazy over it.
they did a demo at the new technology breakfast, and they basically said you don't need a lighting designer anymore. You just tell your AI, and yeah, that was not well
It didn't go
received.
over well. Apparently they had a
Yeah.
lineup at their booth of people in there
Right.
protesting and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's coming, folks. It is
Right.
coming. Like,
I totally agree.
it's coming. There's
Yeah,
always
I
going to be a
mean,
need for some knowledge and stuff, but
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the stuff that you're getting
Yeah.
paid
You.
a lot of money to do that's redundant, imagine that
Mhm.
going away, and figure
Yeah,
out
but then
some.
you can do more projects, right? Because you're spending
Exactly.
less time on the
Exactly.
tedious stuff that you don't want to do anyway.
Exactly.
That's the way
Exactly.
I
No,
look
that
at it.
makes a lot of
So
sense. No,
yeah.
and the other thing is like, God knows someday we're going to have friggin' robots standing there. The lighting director is going to be something that looks like a human in a concert t-shirt or whatever, but it ain't a human. It's coming. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds
Yeah.
crazy, but it's all coming. It's weird like that. You know,
Yeah.
another thing, speaking of consoles, I actually just this morning I saw a thread on, I don't know, everything lighting, whatever, the one of the groups on Facebook, and poor guy, I felt bad for him because he put this post out as a question, and sometimes our industry isn't very
I
friendly
think I
with
saw
people.
that question. Yeah.
So about
I
the
know what you're
fake
going to say.
console in a church,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that one? Like, probably the same as mine, I'm guessing, and most people's.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really bad idea to buy any stolen IP, and that's basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
I went to Pro Light and Sound in Shanghai right before the pandemic, and you can walk through. You can buy a grandma console for $600. You can
What?
buy a Sharpie for $600. You can buy, and it looks like some of them look identical. Some of them look a little off. You can
Yeah,
tell, but the bottom line is it's stolen. It's
it
they are
is.
not building that from the ground up. So what you're doing is you're literally taking money out of people's pockets. There was a company in England, and I'm going to forget their name, but they were very creative, and they made this thing called the LED. It looked like a little flute, almost silver thing with LEDs on it, and it had touch sensors, and you could line them up, and instead of programming them or sorry, instead of typing in their DMX addresses, you put it in address mode, and you walk down the line, you touch them in order, and it would automatically address them in the order you touched them.
That's
And it had
interesting.
sensors, so if you flipped it over, then it knew its orientation. So if it's chasing a particular direction, if one was upside down, it would correct itself. And they also made the I wish I could remember the name of this light. It's very, very popular. About 15 years ago, you saw them everywhere. um, there were throwback to the to the LEDs. When LEDs started getting real popular, they came out with an incandescent 9 light fixture on a stand, and it was super popular.
Oh,
And it,
the B3 or B5 or B1 or whatever, that company, the B something,
no,
B9, B something or other.
as soon as the podcast is over, I'm going to
Of
remember the name
course,
of it. But
that's all right.
anyway, the point
Eric
is
Loader
that
is usually the one that's texting me right now, going, "It's the B7, you idiot."
yeah,
Yeah,
come on, Eric, bring it.
yeah,
Yeah, no, but the point is that they went out of business because they got all of their that fixture got copied so much that it
ugh,
took all the profit out of it, and
brutal.
they didn't survive. So what that means is that there's now one less company that is creating really inventive new products that were different than anybody else. They're
Yeah.
gone now,
So
and
true.
that's what happens when you buy those counterfeit
Well,
products.
it's no different than drugs, except drugs is an evil business. But when we're talking about pharmaceutical drugs, not the other kind, um,
Or both.
no. But the problem being, if you take away the incentive for drug companies to make profit, and they've taken it to an extreme, obviously, but
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
take away the incentive, then you're going to lose the innovation. And the same
right,
thing happens in our industry. Every time
exactly.
someone steals a design from Clay Packy, that sort of knocks them down a rung on wanting to spend the kind of money they do on, coming up with new technology or coming up with great ideas or whatever. And I hate to see it. Like, and I'm not going to mention who exactly the company is. I'm sure you'll figure it out. But, one year at LDI, Clay Packy came out with this fixture. I think it's called, I don't remember, but it's a bunch of small square fixtures, and they kind of do this thing. They're
Yeah.
all LEDs, and they're in a line, and they kind of do this wave thing. It's probably called the wave or
Right.
something. But
Yeah.
uh, you know, within one trade show, like from LDI to whatever was after LDI, it was copied by another
Right.
company, and it was
Right.
brighter and it was cooler and it
Yeah.
was probably cheaper and all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
for me, like, again, where's the incentive to spend money on R&D if
Right.
that cycle where you get to get an ROI on your R&D just goes away? It's
True.
sad. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the
Yeah.
whole fake console thing, like, honestly, I learned about it because somebody put a fake console on Gear Source, and immediately we got contacted by somebody saying, "Hey, that's a fake," and I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, that's a Grand MA2 fake." And I said, "No, it can't be. It looks exactly like an MA2 console." And he goes, "Yeah, they do, but it's a fake." And so we
Yeah.
went to the seller and we said, "Is this a fake?" And he goes, "Yeah, of course." And we're like, "Get it off of our site, will you? Like, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I didn't know I couldn't sell it." And I said, "But you called it an MA Lighting MA2. So even if we did accept fake consoles, you'd have to say it's a fake console, but we don't
Yeah.
accept
Yeah.
them."
Really.
So, we actually put it into our terms and conditions after that, like no counterfeit products. If we find you selling a counterfeit product, you're going to be responsible for anything that costs us. If we get sued, if, we have to ship it back to you, it's all on
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah. I had dinner with Brad from Avo last week,
yeah.
and he told me he could spot him across the room, but he was telling me that they've even gotten some fake consoles in for repair at the Avo shop, and the
Oh
repair
my goodness.
technicians didn't know that they were
Are
counterfeit.
you
And Brad
serious?
walks in and goes, "Yeah." Brad goes, "That console over there, that's a fake." And they're like, "What do you mean? What are you talking?" He's like, "That's a fake," you know.
How did you
So
know?
yeah,
What was the
I think
defining?
he said the color was slightly off or something like
Interesting.
that. I can't remember.
Remember the track spot made in Austin,
Yeah,
Texas, China?
I do.
And
I
it had
discovered
Richard
that.
Bellevue's initials on the inside of it too. Like, they actually
Yes.
copied his little autograph inside it that he used to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
So,
my
and I
God.
wrote about it in my automated lighting book. But I found that at a trade show in Beijing before, when everybody's setting up. I was wandering around, and there's one hall that's all Chinese manufacturers, and
Yeah.
I walked down there, and they're setting up their booth, and I saw something that looked like a track spot sitting on the floor. So I went and started looking at it, and I opened up the cover, and it had all Richard's name in there. And but the funniest thing was, they didn't know to replace USA, or they knew to replace USA with China, but they didn't know to replace Austin, Texas. So it ended up saying Lightwave Research, Austin, Texas, China on it,
I
which was,
know. I didn't
just
realize you were the one who
crazy.
found that. I just remember
I
seeing the
did.
the pictures of it and stuff.
Yeah.
That's so funny
Yeah.
though. That's such a role reversal. You going into their booth and taking the cover off the light and taking pictures of it and stuff. Because that's what they used to do. Like, we used to have to put security
Huh.
guys at booths to keep
Yeah.
those guys out. You'd have all these people from other places coming with cameras, big huge cameras and stuff, taking
Yeah.
pictures of your fixtures and
Yeah.
wanting you to take
And
covers
as,
off and stuff. And it's like, get out
and
of
as soon
here.
as you kick them out, then you get an order for one fixture from
Exactly.
someone,
Yeah. Well, and we used to
Singapore or something.
always get those orders all the time. Like, people would come to
Yeah.
us all the time and say, "Hey, can you get me one of these
Right.
whatever?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, no, we can't." We can't get you one.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's obviously still a thing, and it's amazing to me that they're so blatant about it and that nobody seems to do anything about it. Like you would think
Well,
you could clamp
I,
down on that when you're MA Lighting and they're
yeah.
selling an $80,000 lighting console that they're
Hmm.
selling a counterfeit of. Like, oof,
Yeah. Well, I
brutal.
think it's a cultural thing. I mean, it's just a different way of thinking.
It is. You're right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember one of my first trips to Asia, I saw, I think it was in Hong Kong, and there was a flea market almost, right? And you had
Hmm.
a table with Nike shoes that were
Yep.
real, that were like $30 or whatever. And then you had a table of the exact same shoes next to it that were like $7. And I was like, what's going on? Are these Nike? And he goes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 these are Nike. And I said, so why are these more money? Because those are Nike. And I said, but these are Nike too. And he goes, but not the real Nike, with like a wink and stuff, right? And I'm like,
Uh,
oh, okay. Well, give me 4 pairs of the cheap ones then.
yeah.
I'll take those.
Yeah. Same with DVDs. You could get a movie, of any a DVD of any movie back then for pennies.
Oh my God, terrible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was one time with my ex-wife in Italy. Do you know Chiara, who used to be with Comar?
I don't think so.
Chiara was like Bruno's, right hand. Basically, she Italian lady, really nice Italian lady that worked for Bruno for many years. But we went out one night for dinner with Chiara, and there were these. I think they were Albanians that would set up like a blanket on the ground in the high sort of tourist areas, right? And they'd open up a blanket and they'd have a bunch of fake stuff. And my ex-wife always wanted a Prada wallet. But when you look in the shops, they're like $1,500 for a little wallet, right? And so she goes, "Oh, that's that exact wallet that we were looking at in Milan." And Kiara goes, "Yeah, it is. You should buy it." And she goes, "I can't spend $1,500 on a wallet." And she goes, "Ask him the price." And it was like, it was in lira, but I think it worked out to like $30.
Oh wow.
And Kiara had the same wallet in her bag, but she had the actual Prada one. And she goes, "Barbara, look." And she's comparing, they're both looking at them. Every single thing about them was identical.
Wow.
Identical. So
Wow.
she bought the wallet. I think she talked him down to, $25 or something, and bought the wallet. And she was so happy, with this fake
Yeah.
Prada wallet. Again, it's
Uh,
still stealing,
yeah.
and it's still terrible. I feel less bad about it knowing that Prada has like, 98.5%
Oh yeah.
profit margins or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
they're doing okay. They're not hurting.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's still stealing, whether it's an MA console or a Prada wallet. So I guess
Yeah. I
I
remember when the what was that website where you could steal music, download music for
yeah,
free?
something stir. Uh, what the hell is
Yeah,
that called? The one
Napster.
that
Napster.
Napster, right? Napster.
Yeah, and a lot of people said, well, it doesn't cost the musician anything. Well,
Ugh.
no, but it's taking money out of their pocket. It's hard enough being a musician as it is,
Yeah.
but to steal their intellectual property is
Yeah,
just,
that's one thing I
that's not right.
never, ever, ever did. Not once. And
Me
part of the
neither.
reason was, again, my ex wife worked in the record business and it was
Right. That's
absolutely
right.
taboo. Like if she heard me listening to
Yeah.
something that I didn't buy, I was in big
Right.
trouble. And to this day, I mean, I pay Apple Music, whatever it is, $15
Yeah.
a month or something for unlimited
Yeah.
music.
Right.
And, the artists are still getting ripped off on streaming, but at least I'm paying,
Hmm.
it's legit. But I won't
Doing the
steal a
best we
single
can, right?
song. Yeah, I won't steal a
Yeah.
song from anybody.
Yeah.
I even
Yeah.
feel bad going and listening to somebody's new song on YouTube because, chances are they're not getting paid for that. But
Right.
yeah, what are you gonna do? We can just
Yeah.
try our
Yeah.
best. So have you got any
Yeah.
new
And
books
not
going
not
on?
buy counterfeit. Sorry.
Yeah, have you got any new books going on? You've got like,
So I'm working on the fourth edition of Electricity for the Entertainment Electrician and Technician, and I so wish that I'd made the title shorter. If I known that it'd be four editions, I'd have called it Entertainment Electrics.
yeah,
But
it's a good name.
um, it's so that should be. I just finished about 25% of it. I'm supposed to turn in the rest of it by September.
Yeah.
So early next year, there'll be another edition of Electricity for the Entertainment Electrician and Technician. So if anybody has any suggestions about what they'd like to see in it, or what
Yeah.
they, any changes, now is a good time to let me know.
Well, have ChatGPT read your last book and say, give me some suggestions for things that I can put in the next
It's a
edition of
great
this book.
idea.
There you
Yeah.
go. You know, those are things like, again, some people might say that's bullshit. You know, that's cheating if ChatGPT writes it. It's not writing it. It's helping with
Right.
research. You
That's
know, that's all
exactly
it's
right.
doing.
It's a tool.
You're gonna write it. It's just gonna help you with
Right.
research. It's gonna give you some
Yeah.
ideas of stuff to put in there, and it might write
Exactly.
some of the mundane stuff that is just
Yeah.
repeated or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. And, you know, so again, I would guess that these books you're writing, not because you're getting rich off selling books, because I don't think anyone really does that, do they? I mean,
No, not in our industry.
I don't know too many people who make money on books or get any kind of an income off of books. But so you're really just, this is another authentic, just Richard trying to make a better
Well, I
world that's
mean,
more
so
knowledgeable.
what there, you know, yeah, I do like helping people, and I think
Yeah.
it does help people. But if I'm 100% honest, that book sells my services as a trainer.
Yeah, of
So
course.
when people read the book, they go, "Oh, it'd be cool to go to one of his classes," or they'll call me up and go, "Can you come teach a class?" And that's really where I earn my salary.
Yeah, it
Is by teaching
legitimizes you.
classes.
Being an author legitimizes you as a speaker or a trainer or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, that makes a lot of
absolutely.
sense. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Like I know a lot of public speakers who get paid. You know, I don't know a lot, but I know a few public speakers who get paid $100,000 to go speak
Hmm.
at a convention or a corporate meeting or something, and
Yeah.
to
I
get
charge
into.
slightly less than that.
Do you? Oh, okay. Well, I might have you at my next convention. But you know, the reason that they're able to get that is because they wrote a relatively successful business book or book
Right.
on whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
And you know, by the way, I have a weird fetish for listening to keynote speakers. I love keynote speakers. I always have, and
Hmm.
so one time I
Interesting.
was here's a story for you. One time I was at
Yeah.
either LDI or Infocom. It might have been Infocom in Vegas, and I was staying in the horrible Westgate Hotel. So I was walking over from the Westgate to, it might have been the Hilton still at the time, but I was walking over to the convention center, and there's that last ballroom there, and the door was sort of open, so I could see that there was something going on in there, and there was about to be a keynote. And so I look at the door, and it says like, you know, garage door convention or something, right? And so I'm like, yeah, I'm a garage door guy. So I just went walking in the door. It was open. So I went walking in and I grabbed a chair and sat down. And it was, do you know who Jeffrey Ma is?
Yeah, I think I do actually.
The movie 21 is about him.
Yeah. Okay.
He was like the card counter guy that got thrown out of Vegas or whatever
Oh,
from
right.
him, and his buddies from MIT were, you know, became very, very proficient at counting cards.
Yeah.
And, and so Jeffrey Ma now has a very successful business, basically helping people with numbers. You know, helping whether it's sports teams or businesses or whatever, predicting the future based on numbers from the past and stuff. Right?
Wow.
You know, including like you know, the probability for, you know, in basketball, for example, if you go to this player first and then to this player, you know, what is the probability of getting a 3-point shot versus going from this player to this player? And they look
Wow.
back at all of the numbers that happened in the past, and they give you, you know, the different results from a probability standpoint. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean it's guaranteed. It just means there's a better chance that this is going to work than this is going to work.
Right.
And you know, so obviously in gambling, that's a big deal. And um, you know, although like he talks a lot about the fact that he doesn't like games of chance like roulette, you know, because roulette, you could roll, like, if a lot of people will watch it go black 4 times or 5 times in a row, and they'll be like, okay, I'm putting the house on red because
Yeah.
chances are it's going red. Actually, there's a 50% chance that it's going
Right.
to go black
Exactly.
again. You know,
Yeah.
it really is
Right.
literally it's completely up to chance. There's no likelihood, probability, nothing. It's just
Yeah.
100% chance.
Yeah.
And that's why he played blackjack, because in blackjack, you could actually, and he played in very specific situations like single deck or whatever. I can't remember exactly, but you know, you knew, and they had a number, you know, it's all a weighted number on, you know, now it's a 7 or whatever, and they knew how much to bet based on what the next card was likely to be and all of those different things, and they just couldn't lose. They literally couldn't lose. But
Wow.
anyways, he as a speaker was unreal. It was so entertaining, and I missed my first couple
Wow.
of meetings because I sat in there
Wow.
for an hour and a half and watched this guy speak.
That's
And
great.
I'm just addicted to public speakers. I love
You
I
know,
love
my
watching
favorite speaker
keynotes.
of all time is Tom Peters. Now
Yeah,
he's retired,
yeah,
but several years ago, this was when I'd been laid off from High End and I'd been laid off from Martin, and I was kind of trying to figure things out. And he came to town, and I went to see him, and he was stalking the stage, and he was, spittle was coming out of his mouth as he was
yeah.
talking, and it's just fascinating
So much
and
passion.
brilliant guy. I wish he
Yeah.
was still active, but I guess he's
There's so
retired
many
now. But
really good ones, though. There's like so
yeah,
many great ones out there. You know, one of the guys I'm actually going as much as I can, but I'm going to his the virtual side of it. But a lot of people think he's a complete douche, but every once in a while he says some pretty smart things. Grant Cardone. Grant
I don't know what
Cardone
that
is the
is.
guy. So he's a big real estate entrepreneur, but he went from nothing to something. You know, he was a drug addict, broke, starving, and went and started
Yeah.
selling cars, and just said, how can I sell more cars than the next guy? How can I go 10x on the income that I'm making selling cars? And he started
Mm.
this whole 10x thing, and now he's basically a billionaire, and so he got fairly famous because he did that show, something about I forget what it was called, but something about a billionaire or something or other. Basically, take a guy's money away. He couldn't use his
Mm.
name. He couldn't use his money. He couldn't use any of his stuff, and he had to be dropped into a town and create a business worth, I think it was $5 million within 60 days or 90 days or something, with zero
Wow.
money, no name, nobody could know who he was, you know, nothing like that. He just had to create a business from nothing, and he did it.
Mm.
He made a business that was worth 6 or 7 million within that time frame.
Incredible.
But anyways, he's doing a 3-day thing next week, and I got a free virtual invite thing to it, so I'm gonna pop into it a few times. But
Fun.
he's really
Yeah.
good. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I still like Tony
Yeah.
Robbins. I was listening to Tony Robbins when I was, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. Like I
Hmm.
was one of his earliest fans probably. And
Yeah.
he's gotten a bit
Yeah.
corny today, but he still has some really smart stuff every once in a while. You know, I've gotten to a
Mm.
point where I grab nuggets. Like I don't
Hmm.
listen to everything that anyone says. I kind of grab
Right.
nuggets and then go
Right.
on to the next guy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
that's cool. What
Yeah.
else did I want to ask you about? There was something else here that I missed. Your books. We talked about your books. What are the books you have today? Just list them. And are they all on Amazon too?
Yeah. So, electricity for entertainment electricians and technicians, automated lighting, the art and science of moving and color changing lights.
Has that
There
been
was
updated, or is that the
that
original
it
version?
needs to be updated. My publisher wanted me to update it a couple of years ago, and I put it off just because it's so hard to keep up with that technology right
No
now.
shit.
I
Yeah,
kind of want
no
to let the
shit.
dust settle a bit
Yeah,
before I tackle it again because it's a big project. The last time
yeah.
I updated it, I told I can see what year was this? 2000. I can't remember now, but the last time I updated it, my publisher said, how long is it going to take you? I said, oh, it'll take me a year. Well, it took me 3
Really?
because everything
Wow.
changed. Everything. I
Yeah.
mean, LEDs were huge, and the power supplies have changed. The optics have changed because of LEDs. Of course, the light source has changed. There's so much going on in that area. That's now that book I might just tell Chat GPT, just rewrite this book for me. So,
No, it's. I was actually going to say it. It sounds like another perfect
yeah.
use case. I mean, you could create probably. Well, there's writing. There's writing GPTs, custom writing
Mm.
GPTs, but I'm sure there's probably like book updating GPTs too. You know, things that
That's what
that
I
will help
need.
you to
Yeah.
update a book. Yeah, you should look
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
because that sounds like a really good use
definitely.
case for that.
Yeah,
What else
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
there? What other books?
There's Focus on Lighting Technology. Now, that's an old book. I haven't updated it in quite a while.
Yeah.
And then there's also Lighting for Modern Houses of Worship, which again I have not updated in a long, long time. That book was based on my experience when I left Martin. I started freelancing as a lighting designer. I got a lot of, and I hooked up with this company that was based in Nashville called Max Productions, and they were doing a lot of church projects.
Interesting.
Yeah. And what I quickly realized, for we did these, mega churches, lit these mega churches, and
Yeah.
they were audio guys, so I did all the lighting, and what I quickly realized is that that's a great way to learn lighting, because in a church environment, it's basically a combination of theatrical lighting because you have live people on stage and a live audience.
Yeah.
It's also television lighting because a lot of them have television ministries, so they have cameras everywhere
Yeah.
and they're shooting video. And it's also kind of like concert lighting because they have a band on stage too. So
Interesting. Yeah.
it's a great way to learn lighting in general. And so I wrote a book about how to light for churches, and really, if you take out the references to churches, it's just how do you light a stage? How do you light a
Nice.
band? How do you
Yeah.
light for television? It's all
Yeah.
the same thing.
Interesting.
So that book is what I should do, is take the Chat GPT and get it to take out the church references and just make it a lighting book.
Well, and again, I mean, what has changed? I'm sure some things have changed that make it a heck of a lot easier or different or, whatever, like it
Well,
art.
what the physics hasn't changed, so 3-point lighting is still very valid, the McCandless
Yeah.
method, and that's basically what that book was about.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Fausto Orsatti again, another
Sure,
old Comar guy,
of
but
course,
Fausto and I are very close friends. I talk to him constantly,
great
and
guy.
he's just a guy that I've always really appreciated.
Yeah,
Very smart guy, but he just
yeah,
went to ProLight, and after ProLight, kind of gave me his uh, download or whatever on ProLight, and he just he thinks that we're in a bit of a boring moment in our industry, like they're small incremental
hmm,
advancements at this moment, whereas I think I'm still blown away by how much better everything is than it was when you and I were selling moving lights for a living.
yeah,
I
me
mean,
too.
anything, every brand. I don't care whether it's the cheapest offshore brand or the most expensive US made stuff or whatever, if there is any US made stuff anymore. But, it's all so damn good. It's all
It's
really,
so
really good.
reliable.
Really
It's
reliable.
packed with features. It's affordable. It's bright. The
Yeah.
color rendering is spectacular.
Yeah.
It's just mind blowing.
It really is so impressive. And, they're just jamming so many things. Like, I've
Yeah.
said this before and I'll say it again, but I went to the Ayrton headquarters in Paris a couple years ago, and one of their engineers opened a light for me, and I can't even remember which light it was, but I'm sure they're all very similar. I couldn't believe how much stuff was packed into it. Like, all it was just unreal because obviously with LED there's less heat, so you can put things closer together. And I was just blown away. I was like, "Oh my god," and
Yeah, and you wouldn't be
just
able to do that
beautiful.
without computers and
Yeah,
without rapid prototyping.
yeah,
Those are tools, just like AI is,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
AI is going to take us to the next level.
Of
And so, I mean,
course.
not to change your
No,
subject
no,
here,
no. It's all
but
good.
it all kind of ties together,
It
right?
does. Yeah, I think AI, to me there's a couple of things, and I want your prediction on the sort of future of automated lighting. But for me, I think battery technology is going to be big. I think that's going to be a big part of it. Wireless and battery technology going
Yeah.
together. So I think we're going to see a lot less cabling in the future, and a lot more, either battery or batteries built into the trussing, and then you just clip it to the trussing, and it gets its power there or whatever. But so I think that's going to be a big one, and just wireless technology continuing to improve and become much more utilized than it is today. Those to me are going to be a couple of the big changes that we'll see in the future, because it doesn't make sense to have to run the amount of infrastructure that we have still at this point. You know,
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think one of the next steps is going to be to take out to change the power supply, because right now what we do is we generate power. We generate alternating current AC. We send it to these fixtures that have a power supply that change it to low voltage DC.
yeah,
So if you have a battery, then you need to convert it to AC, and then the fixture turns it back into DC. So we can skip that middle step, because every time you convert it, you lose some energy.
right, yeah,
So I think it won't be long before we have go back to DC systems.
yeah.
So now, instead of having a light with a power supply in it, it'll have an inverter in it.
Hmm.
Or, not an inverter. It'll have it'll just take DC right into it. So if your battery bank is not in the light, that's going to make your light smaller and lighter
Interesting. Yeah,
without a power supply in it. There's no transformer in it. You just plug it into DC and it goes. Now people say, well, wait a minute, you can't do that because the DC is low voltage and you'll have too much voltage drop. Well, the thing is, we have inverters that can raise the voltage, so we can easily, in a very small package, we can take 48 volts DC, we can make it 48,000 volts DC. That reduces the current, makes the wires much smaller. You can send it a long way. Then you have another inverter that drops it back down to 48 volts DC, and you plug your light into it. So it's the technology is there today. It's just going to take somebody who has the initiative. And I
yeah,
do know some people who are working along those lines. So I think it's going to happen at
yeah,
some point that we go
yeah.
to DC, back to
You,
DC.
you know what's funny? I remember last time I had you on the podcast, I asked you a prediction, and you probably don't remember what it was, but I do.
I don't
I
know.
can't believe I remember what it was, but it was one of the greatest answers I ever had to that question. Because I don't ask it often, but when I get smart guys like you on, I'll ask because I'm genuinely interested. To be honest, I want to know where people see things going. But I asked you what's one of the things that hasn't been invented that you'd like to see invented, and you said bending light.
Ah, yeah.
You said bending light, and I went, what? And you explained to me, what that meant. And I was like, wow, somebody figure that out, would you? And it was just such a wild answer, bending light. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
S- s-
um, sometimes, I understand where Fausto is coming from, because if you look at the effects that lights produce, that
mhm,
hasn't changed a whole lot. So sometimes you have to really try to think outside of the box,
mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No. And yeah, I mean, for him, I don't know if he's just bored of it or if he really does think, because I don't think we're in a boring spot at all. Like I do think we're running out of ways to change, the standard moving light or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
brighter LEDs. I like that we're going to miniaturization on a lot of these lights right now. Like the Mac 1 is one of my personal
right.
favorites. I think
That's
it's a
pretty
killer
cool.
little product, and the
Yeah,
packaging, with the 4 bar and stuff. Um,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw Ayrton, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called, but they just showed something at ProLight that is like their old Magic Dot. I think it's that basic body. It's like that little tiny round ball fixture, but it's got a laser source in it,
Ooh,
and you know. Like so some people would say, oh great, another Sharpie, with a laser in it, who cares? But to me, it's the form factor, it's the size, it's the fact that this
yeah,
thing's this tiny, and now you can get this extremely bright beam coming out of very small places, out of a
right.
very small fixture that's really quick too. That's interesting. But so
Yeah, when I wrote Automated Lighting, the art and science, I started tracking the uh, the size, the intensity, and something else of moving lights over decades.
oh
And
really?
you can see, yeah, you can see, you know, uh, how lights are getting smaller, brighter. I guess expense would be the other thing, cheaper. Um, for the amount of light output. And I
Yeah,
always thought that's going to level off. It's got to level off at some point. And I think
of
it did
course.
for a while. It started plateauing out around 2000,
Sort
but
of a
it's
Moore's
taking
law
off
kind of
again.
thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's taken off
So
again. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. Like, well, I've been seeing people doing this whole, like, what is it, lumens per ounce or something like that, or,
yeah,
uh, as opposed to lumens per watt, they're now doing lumens per ounce or lumens per pound or whatever. Like, that's
right.
cool. I like that. I think
It
that's a
is.
cool idea because we were getting too big and fat and heavy for a little
Right.
while there.
Exactly. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
moving lights are 150 pounds and one road case is as big as a
Yeah.
Volkswagen, like it just doesn't make sense. It's just getting
Right.
silly.
Right.
Yeah. So one more question.
Mhm.
I've started this new sort of go-to gear thing where on the site we're gonna start promoting. So and so says these are his three favorite pieces of gear or whatever. So what are like three things that you love that like
Oh man,
if you're designing a show, you got to have these three things.
you're gonna put me on the spot. Well, I'll tell you this. Speaking of Chat GPT, I asked it the other day, what was the most popular moving light fixture? Stage
What
light,
was it? That's
automated light
interesting.
fixture, and the number one answer was a Mac Aura. And
Really?
I gotta admit, man, I use those a lot, and I like them.
It is a great light.
Um,
It is a great
yeah,
light. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm surprised though. I would have thought that it'd say like a mega point or something, like a Roby mega point or uh,
Well,
like I'm just
I
thinking of
don't
tour
know.
specs and stuff, like those
Yeah,
are the things that
I,
I always get people looking for.
yeah. I can't vouch for how accurate it is.
Yeah,
I just
of
thought it'd be
course.
interesting to ask.
It is
You
an
know?
interesting question. I've never thought of
Yeah,
asking it that kind of stuff. That's a good idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What else?
So I think, wow, this is tough.
What
Um,
what kind of console are you on normally?
um, I, I, I used to be a hog guy.
Yeah.
But lately I've been using more of a grandma console. So
Yeah.
although I have to say I really like the new, and I haven't used one on the show, the ETC Apex looks
Yeah.
really interesting.
Hmm.
So I'd like to get my hands on that one.
Yeah.
Um, then but a lot of times these days I'm working as a master electrician, so a lot of my favorite stuff now is I pay less attention to the lights than to the tools, the meters and stuff like that. But if I had to pick one more, let me think about this. It would probably be
By the way, these or this question is going into our, when we book people, it's going into the booking
yeah.
form. I think it's already in there, starting like this week or
Okay,
something. So
good
you
idea.
you missed it by
Yeah,
a week or two, but
yeah.
yeah, we're asking some
Well,
new questions.
yeah. So I think I've in terms of just the effect and having fun playing with programming, I really like the Madrix because of its 3D pixel mapping stuff.
Yeah,
So, you can do that with almost any um, pixel matrix, right? So,
yeah,
but I would say the Madrix.
cool, nice, awesome. Well, did I miss anything? Are you promoting anything that we haven't already talked about, or
I have classes coming up in Dallas in April and in Baltimore in August. So
how do people book
that's
those?
on my website, www.aptxl.com.
You have so many websites.
I have too many. You're
Yeah.
right. I need to get
Well,
rid of. I
I
need to
looked
pare
at
them
the
down.
arcad.me one and it really needs updating. See,
Yeah,
you
it
need
does.
clones. You need a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I have a
Right.
friend who's like a solopreneur, similar to you.
Uh-huh.
And he said that he's now got employees, but he said that his best employee is ChatGPT. He said he has
Yeah.
figured out the prompting so much to this point
Yeah.
now where, he's talking to that thing 3 hours a day and it's giving him 10 hours worth of work every day. Like it's just
Amazing.
insane the amount of stuff that it's doing for him. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We're scratching the surface, right?
of
I've just
course.
been dabbling.
We've only just begun.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there goes my singing career. It's over.
I
Well, Rich, I
don't know. That
appreciate you,
wasn't
man.
bad.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I'm
Oh,
so
thank
happy
you, Marcel.
you made the time to come and do this. I always enjoy talking to you. We don't do it often enough.
My
Um,
pleasure. It's been fun.
yeah, cool. All right, my friend. See you later.
All right. Be well. Bye bye.
You too.